Welcome to an educational edition of ARG Presents. I am Amigo Aaron, joined by the man that coined the term educainment. I give you the Professor of Educational Pain, the Brent.
Let me tell you something. We got caned multiple times this week.
Listen, this was where that term came from, I believe, Brent. Educainment. It should have been edupainment, my friend. Real, but maybe we're killing this thing for no reason. We'll find out. How you doing this week, Brent? Everything good?
I'm well. How about
I'm
yourself?
peachy keen, my friend. I am preparing to go on vacation in less than 1 day.
All right.
The king of randomness, the wheel, once again proved last week why you can't ever guess what it's going to do when it decided that we would be playing games from the bizarre and unusual realm of the V-TECH Socrates, Brent. The Socrates, the Socrates, if you will. An unusual little console, Brent, that we've touched on once before during the Thanks for Giving Marathon with a piece suggested by John Bodovkarshaw, my partner in crime. And he has a personal attachment to this thing. I'd never heard of this thing until he mentioned it. Hey, what's your, aside from that one experience, did you know anything about the Socrates?
No. Previous to that, no.
Let's learn a little bit about the Socrates. Before we get into it thoroughly, this is one machine I actually happen to own a copy of, but I own the entire machine, and I will hold it up thusly. Here it is. This is your Socrates right here, the Socrates. For you listening on the podcast, I'll try to describe what I'm holding up here. What you've got here is a console with a full keyboard attached to it that comes off. This is a wireless infrared keyboard here. The unit itself is large and white with a big kind of a weird see-through window here. And you've got your, it's got RF connections. And on the side of it here, you've got a cartridge slot, and you've also got an on-off switch. That's pretty much all you get on this thing. Of course, there's a power adapter. This thing does run on batteries, and you can put batteries in here. I believe it runs on 6. So I can get this thing open. I believe it's, what do we got? 6D batteries, Brent. So if you could actually take this, I could take this in the woods tomorrow if I wanted to.
Yeah, I mean, you couldn't see it, but yeah, you could.
Right,
you could power it and use it for warmth or something.
Let me close this thing up here. So, get in there. There we go. Now let's talk about the keyboard here. Pops right off, as you can see. And you've got on this keyboard here, you've got two little, sort of like, almost like game pads, but they're not really. They're sort of flat blue pads that you can move around, but they don't click or come out. And you've got two little buttons here, two little red buttons, one on either side. This is for 2-player gaming. And then
the keyboard is a wonderful membrane keyboard. We all love those.
That's right. This thing has the old membrane keyboard. It feels pretty. I mean, it doesn't feel like anything, to be honest. But I mean, this one feels like it's in pretty good shape. Sometimes these kind of flat membrane keyboards will crack, over time. But this one is in real good shape. And of course, this one on the back has your on-off switch, and this one also has a battery. This one takes 2 AA's. So bring your batteries to the woods with you when you take this thing out. Lastly, this also I have
something that should be commented about the keyboard, Aaron.
Yeah.
All the vowels are highlighted in red for you for your learning experience.
Yeah, absolutely. We've also got, lastly, we've got the old Magic Pen and touchpad. And I think this is kind of neat. This is, again, a wireless peripheral. On the back, you've got a keyboard. You've got a button or a battery area here and an on-off switch. And this has a pen, a little pen that you can use on the touchpad. This is made of the same material as the keyboard, that kind of flat membrane that you can use. But you could actually draw on this or tap
Practice your letters.
Yeah, that's right.
That was one of the big selling points of the touchpad is you could actually practice your writing.
Right. And at the top here, you've got some buttons for different functionality. So it's kind of neat. And then I want to touch on these cartridges for this thing. I've got 2 cartridges here. One of the ones I'm doing is the game I'm doing today. The other one here I've got is Facts and Fractions. And if you look at the cartridges real closely, what they did was they made them look like floppy disks, which I always thought was
very thick floppy disk. Yeah.
right. Very strange.
No, I think that's a good idea.
Well, I mean, I don't know why they would do it.
Because they're trying to sell this as a computer.
Well, I mean, you're
right.
It's
a console.
Yeah.
But they're trying to sell it as a computer.
Yeah. It was an unusual system. Now, if you know anything about V-TECH, they tend to make some of these kind of wacky educational toys. Let's go with that. And this is their sort of their computery attempt. Let's learn a little bit about this thing, Brent. Again, this was manufactured by the people over at V-TECH. They're still around, of course. This came out in 1988 at a price of $130, which today would be about you're up into near the $300 range.
Yeah.
For that one. This has a Zilog Z80 processor at 3.5 second megahertz. So another one of these things with a Zilog in it. This had 8 cartridges released when it was out. Believe it or not, this was the machine. We've actually covered the predecessor of this. Was the Creative Vision. Remember that?
Absolutely.
And the thing that we probably will never cover that came by to take over for this thing was the old V-TECH V-Smile, which I've seen these things too. Remember the V-Smile?
Nope.
That's a horrible name, by the way. You went from the Socrates to the V-Smile. That blows. So this thing, one of the things about this machine that I like is that they did something the Amiga could never do. They have a decent little mascot for it. They've got a little robot guy. He looks a little bit like what was the guy's name in Short Circuit? Johnny Five.
Johnny Five.
Yeah, and he's a happy little robot. He smiles. I think he appears in pretty much every game in some capacity, Brent. At least the games I looked at.
Yeah, I believe he does.
Yeah, he's kind of cool. The V-TECH distributed this thing all over the world under different names. In Germany, this was called Professor Weiss Alice, which it says here translates into Professor Knows Everything. It's not a bad name. In France, it was Professor Setaut Education for Video, which it says here that means know all. So another one, I guess, a Professor Know It All. In Canada, they distributed this thing as the Socrates Setaut Education of Video, which they sort of combined the French and the English version, which is kind of cool. This machine also has a built-in set of games, which is cool. I don't know. Did you look at any of these built-in games, Brent?
No, I did not.
They're actually, I mean, they didn't skimp on it. They've got some pretty decent stuff in there. There's there's musical stuff, picture stuff, math. There's a competition thing where you can have sort of a math competition. One thing about the Socrates you'll learn as you go through is like everything on this has 2-player support. Pretty much everything has difficulty levels, so you can sort of cater to your kid's age, which is kind of cool. And the fact that it's got multiplayer support, it means you could have 2 kids playing at once if you've got a couple little kids. So they actually put some thought into this. It wasn't just some sort of random one-off piece of crap that they used to swindle people out of money that wanted to give their kids stuff. Because I know as a father, when my kid was small and his grandmother was trying to get him every kind of wacky little educational toy there is, they were often just garbage or something pretending to be educational. This I actually think would probably help your kid learn, but we'll get into that more fully later on. As I mentioned, this thing had 8 official releases, Brent. I'm going to go over these. By the way, in case you're wondering, this thing had the game sold for $40.
Yeah,
so
which is a lot.
That's kind of pricey. So I've got 2 of these 8. They are Fact and Fraction, Memory Mania, Hodgepodge, Around the World, Mystery Puzzle, States to States, which I believe we played that on Thanks for Giving, Brent.
Yes.
Amazing Mazes.
We also
played, yeah. And Game Wizard. Apparently the Game Wizard's a pretty rare title, Brent. This also came with peripherals, right? And which we're going to get to. It came with a mouse system, believe it or not, a touchpad system, which is what I've got here. This thing had a voice cartridge, Brent. That'd be interesting. I wonder how that thing works. I would be interested to know. Now, you'll notice that I didn't read the name of Brent's game this week. I believe your game was packaged with the mouse, but we'll let you get more into that.
It was, yes.
Okay. When the deal goes down. This thing was aimed at kids from 3 and up. I would say your kid could probably play this from 3 to say probably 8. I'd say that you probably in the wheelhouse. I think after that you're probably getting a little.
If you have a very patient child.
Right. Apparently, when this was discontinued, they had planned on it. I mean, I think this thing ran its course, because one thing that V-TECH tends to do, if you look over their cavalcade of consoles and toys, they crank these suckers out a lot. Like, they don't mess around, and so they really put out a lot of these different sorts of little computers and educational toys. That was just sort of their MO. So I'm assuming that once they thought one was even remotely obsolete or had been out for a while, it was time to crank out another one. I should mention that V-TECH was founded. I thought this was interesting. V-TECH was founded in October of '76, Brent. So they've been around for a while, by a fellow named Alan Wong and Stephen Hung in Hong Kong. So, and they originally were developing video games, and in '77 they created the first home console version of Pong, which was interesting. I didn't know that either. Yeah. So they only sell, at least when they started, they were only made to sell stuff in North America and Europe. That's what they did. And they branched out into educational titles with the Creative Vision, really. The Creative Vision had their cartridge-based system, and then they sort of moved into the cartridge area, and they sort of rolled into the educational scene pretty much sort of right around the same time. So pretty interesting way to go. It'd be difficult to plan to get into the realm of educational toys, because it seems like that sort of could be dangerous in some ways.
Well, here's the thing, though. During this time, not so much their first system, but the era of Socrates, and forward, video games were starting to take a lot of heat for being violent. Parents were like, listen, you're just throwing junk at the screen. Your kids are playing it mindlessly. And there was a big call for educational software.
Right.
And I think that's a lot of the reasons why things like the Socrates were made. They were trying to jump on those parents, the market for those parents, to say, hey, look, here's a video gaming alternative, to your Mortal Kombats and your Street Fighters. Come by us, let your kids learn. And the late 80s, early 90s, that's where the big push for this stuff was. Now, even your mainstream consoles, your Nintendos and your Super Nintendos and stuff like that, tried to jump into that market, and Nintendo specifically pushed it a lot. Yeah. They were like, listen, we want more educational games for our systems. But the problem is, and the reality of it is, educational software overall does not sell well. Even when you've got big name characters like Sesame Street and that kind of stuff, it's a very tough sell. So I think that led to the creation of the Socrates and also the failure of the Socrates, because they were asking for so much money. I think they were trying to grab the desperate parent who was wanting something more educational for their kids, but being as expensive as it was, I think it was off-putting.
It's interesting to me that they're coming off the Creative Vision, which is that we played this one. I think we may have played the Creative Vision in a couple different forms over the years, and which is I don't remember any educational stuff, but there might be a couple titles. It seems like you've got a good-looking machine. I think this is a pretty attractive machine. And
absolutely.
Say what you will about the removable keyboard and the little controllers on it, but listen, that's not bad. I mean, we've seen a lot worse on here. I would have maybe went to put some actual titles on this thing to see how you could do.
You're missing the point. they didn't want actual titles. They wanted educational titles. That's the market they were trying to corner. Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, the name of it is the Socrates Educational Video System.
I know, but I wouldn't have named it that either. Although for an educational system, it's a good name. We should mention that one of the downfalls of this machine is it's painfully slow. The I/O on it is, I mean, it's running off cartridges, but it's funny that these things look like discs. They should look like cassette tapes because this thing runs real slow. And everything, it's funny with I mean, I don't know, it's got a decent processor in it, clocked pretty high. You would think this thing could crank out a little bit quicker get on-screen action, but it does not. It's very slow. It loads slow. It boots slow. Everything's slow.
The graphics on the Socrates are exceptional. They're very colorful. They're very detailed. The sound on the Socrates is about average.
Yeah.
There's
not tons of it.
Yeah, it's beeps and boops, but they're pretty well done, and there's, it's repetitive.
It can
but
play
that's
little
because
songs.
of the software.
It can do little songs.
The controls for the Socrates, the membrane keyboard is okay. The little joysticks are okay. I mean, they're functional. They're RF, so that kind of is a killer.
Yeah, you have to be in direct sight of this thing.
But all of that is good enough, right? But the having to draw scenes and the way that it displays graphics is absolutely abysmal.
It reminds me of the old Coco when you're trying to load up a real high res picture. I mean, everything is just, or like you're downloading something on a BBS and you're waiting for it to come down. It's mega slow.
It is prohibitively slow.
Yeah.
It is prohibitively slow.
But
we'll get more into that when we look into the software itself.
But overall, a handsome unit. I mean, I really do think it's an attractive. I mean, don't you think it's a good-looking piece of kit?
I do. I
and
think
it looks. It actually. I'm going to hold this up and get it. It looks like it held up. It held up pretty well, over the years. I mean, it still looks pretty. It looks like something they'd be using in Buck Rogers back in the '80s.
Well, I don't think it looks futuristic, but I think it looks functional. I think it looks like a marriage of console and computer, which I believe is exactly what they were going for. So, also not having a QWERTY keyboard, what was that choice?
Listen,
I mean, I know it's an educational piece of software, but wow.
Because kids know the letters in order. And that's how they need to do it.
But wow.
Listen, this is why you're not working for V-TECH, my friend. They need that stuff.
They had everything going for this except for function.
I agree. I think, and I think they probably could have given function a little bit more if they'd had a chance. So, with all that said, let's pop in. We picked 2 games in this library here, and we will. I will be curtain jerking this week with my choice. My choice, Brent, this week was not Facts and Fractions. Was Memory Mania, Brent. Memory Mania.
Yes.
Brent, you are now Socrates, by the way.
Thank you.
Congratulations. That's amazing. So, let's talk about Memory Mania. There's really not much to say about Memory Mania, I'll be honest with you, in terms of backgrounds on these things. Memory Mania was released in '88. Of course, this was published by V-TECH. And who knows, I assume all these things were actually done in-house. So it's not like there was somebody who was producing these things for V-TECH. They were just being produced. Memory Mania comes out. All these games, when you start out, there's a little tune, little tune. The robot pops up. I don't think the robot has a name. We're going to call him Socrates. And then he gives you a menu of what you can do. Now, I will say, every one of these cartridges that I've played, they had a variety of different stuff you could do. It's not like you just put the cartridge in, you get one game, which is cool, and I appreciate that. You get multiple games. So on mine, you got 6 games. We'll just hop through them real quick. The first game is called Match It. This is a simple game of the old memory game where you just turn over cards that have pictures on them, and you try to match up the pictures from amongst the other turned over cards. pretty simple. All these, I should mention, are for 1 or 2 player. All of these have a skill level. Usually it's between 1 and 5. Sometimes it's between 1 and 4. And on mine, if you increase the skill level on this game, it just adds tons and tons of cards. So instead of
that's not true. Also, it does things like match the capital letter to the lowercase letter. So it does have some variety on different levels.
On mine, I don't remember seeing that. It just had pictures. I remember seeing any letters to match up. What skill level would you end up maxing out on? Is that the highest level? Because I only went up to, like, say, I tried 2 and 3.
Now I cannot remember exactly what level that did that, but it was a choice.
It's pretty. Yeah. I will say they do a decent job, and I noticed this across the board. When you increase the skill level, I mean, the skill levels seem like they're pretty evenly, they look like it's a pretty steady increase. They don't go bananas. But I mean, even at the top level, I should mention there's a time limit on the memory matching game. But even on the top level, I mean, it's pretty challenging. I think you got like 8 minutes to do flip over all the cards. There's a lot of cards.
Let me jump in here, Aaron.
Yeah.
This game was dreadful.
What? You mean this particular part of the game?
This particular part of the game.
Okay.
And the reason why is you have a time limit, right?
Yeah.
Which automatically adds some level of stress.
I know where you're going here, but go ahead.
So you pick a card and you pick another card, and if you don't make a match, it plays like the didn't make
song.
A match tune,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you just have to sit there and take it.
Yep.
And this song is like 2 or 3 seconds long every
like,
time that you fail.
Something like that.
So, and then if you make a successful match, you get the happy tune, which is actually longer than the you lose tune.
Yeah.
And you're sitting there going, just shut up. Let me pick another card. I'm running out of time.
Yeah.
So it was incredibly stressful.
Yeah.
I did not like this one.
Yeah, I knew you were going to say that. And of course, it's got to have time for the little creature at the bottom of the screen to, like, be sad. You know, whatever. That's. By the way, animations on the Socrates are frame by frame at best. You maybe get 2, maybe 3 frames of animation.
Yeah, it's not much.
Actually, I didn't hate this, though. I thought it was okay.
Oh, God. It was so stressful.
I like the idea that it's 2 players. You're right. The little songs. As a kid, you would probably stomp on the keyboard at some point when you're trying to play this. So the next one was Super Scanner. It's funny, before the show, me and Brent had to look this up to remember what it was because it was so goofy. So in this little game, there's a clown that shows you a word for a certain amount of time, again, depending on the skill level and whatnot. And then you've got to, the word goes away, then you've got to match up the word with a selection of 4 words that appear. For example, if the word was a car, then it would go away, and at the top of the screen you would see bar, care, car, and Carl, and you've got to pick the one that's car. That's pretty much, and when you do it, the clown he's happy, and when you don't do it, he's not happy. Of course, he's sort of always happy, isn't he? But he's sort of because he's a clown. So
this is the worst. For education,
I knew you were going to bury
educational purposes.
Yes.
Because it is literally like you don't spell the word at no point. See, this should have been the word pops up, right?
Yeah.
And then you use the keyboard and you spell it back in. But that's not the case. You see a word and then you have to pick that word out of 4 multiple choice. What is that? That's nothing.
I don't know what that is, man. It's something. It's something. So then we'll move on. And the clown looks he looks pretty happy. He looks like a pretty friendly clown.
He looks jovial. Yeah.
Oh,
and the screen is covered in candy.
Yeah. Then
I guess that's supposed to distract the children.
Right. Next up on the docket, picture puzzle. This is the old scrambled up picture, but they include some letters, like a word. So when you're unmixing the picture, you also are spelling a word. This one also includes a jovial sign hanger, like a billboard hanger, and like it looks like he's wearing like a cardigan, a green one, and he watches your efforts, and whenever you get it right, he'll nod in approval. He's like, yeah, that's it. And
he is also buff as can be.
Oh yeah,
this man should be in football.
Yeah, he's a big guy. Well, I mean, you have to be a big guy to do those billboards. That stuff's tough. And so, but that's it. As you go on, of course, it gets more pieces basically, but that's about it. Pretty simple stuff. Then you've got what's missing. All right, what's missing is they show you a scene, and then as you look upon the scene, there's a time limit that you look at. It's funny. I'm watching this video, and for me, it was always a beach scene. So I'm guessing that's what it was always. Was it always a beach picture for you too when you played it?
This one was beach. Yeah.
And so you look at like a ton of stuff on the screen, like your beach ball or a basket or a life preserver, pelican, whatever, and then they wipe the screen. They take some of that stuff away, and then you take your cursor and move around the screen. It's almost like a point and click, Brent. And you try to you point where you think something was, and then if something was there, it will tell you, and you have to try to guess what was there. So this is a little more advanced part of the game. It's real easy to miss where you think the picture was, and get a yucky point basically. And the computer, there's a little computer that kind of is guiding you, and he'll give you the frowny if you don't put the cursor in the right spot.
Yeah. You get demerits as errors every time that you misclick or click an item that is no longer there.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the round, those are subtracted from your points. Now, so there is a scoring mechanism. I thought this one was okay.
Yeah, and then of course the last one, what's different? This is pretty much exactly the same as the last one. This time, instead of just removing objects after the time limit runs out, they will change it with objects, and your object of your memory match here is to try to go through and find what has changed and what it was before it changed. So you've got to memorize the pictures. I thought these were pretty good for for a kid to work on his memorization skills to a certain degree. And overall, let's face facts. It is what it is. It's not the best. But I mean, these are some pretty decent titles. I thought as a memory aid for a kid, something for a small child, something simple to use. I thought this was okay. That's my review.
What's different was the best of the five, because it gives you. It's like it takes everything from the previous games and puts it into one game. Yeah. When you have your scene, right, and you have your items up there, it gives you 15 seconds, I think, to memorize where everything is. And then it doesn't just remove things. Sometimes it will just change the color. So it's a lot more of memorizing details rather than just, small factoids about what you're looking at. I thought that was really good. And even on the highest difficulty, my memory sucks anyway. My short-term memory is absolutely horrible. But I found myself making errors on this one. I thought it was difficult enough that the top-end skill level was something that kids would actually have to work on. The beginning levels, it was pretty easy because there weren't a lot of items. But when you have 12 items on the screen and some of them disappear, some of them just shift over like one grid space, or they change colors from orange to purple. And it's not like the whole it's not the whole item change, just one part of the item, like a fin on a rocket or the nose cone of a missile might change.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very detailed. I thought it was my favorite one to play by far.
I think what's missing and what's different are the most difficult ones, and I also think they're the ones that are the most interesting in terms of what a kid would be into, because you get to
not frustrating.
You get sort of like an exploration element where you get to look around trying to find it. Although that can be frustrating. So that's Memory Mania. We got no reviews on any of these. I know you're stunned. I guess people forgot.
You know my favorite part of Memory Mania, right?
What?
When you load up Memory Mania for the very first time, you've got your little Socrates robot standing there, right? And he's got this big old smile on his face like he almost always does.
Yeah.
And he thinks, and there's a thought bubble, and it goes up above his head, and he actually looks up to read his own thought bubble, and it says Memory Mania in real big letters, and he gets this oh crap expression on his face.
He knows
He's
he's
like,
in trouble.
"Oh no!"
Yeah, he knows it's going down, man. That's for sure. So, Brent, what did you bring to the party this week?
Boy, well,
Yeah, because when you picked this, I thought to myself, "Party! This is the game right here, game." And
it was. I tried to think what is the most advanced piece of software on the Socrates.
Uh-huh.
So I went with CAD Professor. Now, Aaron, do you know anything? Do you know anything about CAD?
Yeah, it's a computer assisted drawing.
Right.
Yeah.
I have to deal with CAD a lot in what I do because I work with blueprints, not actually creating blueprints, but sometimes I'll have to adjust for scale and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I have a fair amount of knowledge with actual CAD software that makes, DWG files, stuff like that. And I knew I wasn't going to get that. That was never going to happen. But when I loaded this up for the first time, I was very stunned to see that CAD Professor has a CAD studio, a interior design studio,
Yes.
a texture studio,
Textile,
and the fashion studio, all built into this one little cart. This is also the only Socrates game that uses the mouse.
Yeah.
So you do have a mouse. So I was kind of pumped going into this.
Yeah.
Let's go down from top to bottom on these. The first one, of course, is the CAD Professor itself, where you are doing architectural design. And by architectural design, I don't know what you're thinking in your head, but you're wrong.
Yeah. Boy, was I surprised.
This is you choose a scene, a landscape, right? And then you choose parts of a house that you paper doll into that scene. And that is how it works. In fact, that's how it works for all the games, but the architectural design is really bad. It is when you pick a selection, right? Let's say you pick a roof, and then you go to place the roof into the scene. It doesn't show you the picture of the roof you picked and let you move it around. It shows you a square that says, when you press your button, this square is going to become the roof.
That's all you need.
And everything is at this isometric view. So you put the roof down, right? And if it's off by a few pixels one way or the other, it's done. You just have to eat it. It's there now. So when you go to put your walls down, because you're designing your house or a window, again, you don't get what you select. You just get a square representing what you selected. Lining this stuff up, impossible.
Well, although
Cannot
they do have they have a decent picture in here, like an example or whatever.
Oh yeah,
it looks awesome.
Yeah,
I thought to myself, "Holy smokes! Can you do that with this?" Surely they.
No.
Because I mean, at the heart of this whole package, there's this sort of remedial paint program.
Yes.
And when I say remedial, I mean it's well, it's hard to use when emulated. Let's just put it that way.
It's hard to use, period.
But if you have the mouse, I would wonder if this would be more usable. But it's any way it goes, it's going to be a slow time. And the way you pick stuff, you sort of like, it's not like a proper paint program where you pick something and then like then you there's a screen to draw on beside what you pick. And this, you have to pick what you want, and then the screen with the stuff you can pick goes away. And then the canvas shows up. So if you want to switch between tools, you've got to go back to the other screen. And you've got to wait for that screen to load. It looks like they've got a lot of options. Like I said, it looks a lot like, say, Microsoft Paint or something in terms of what you could do. But the fact that you have to switch back and forth is tedious. Let's just put it that way. And, of course, the control of this thing is difficult as well.
And here's the absolute killer. every time you load up that house scene where you've got your landscape, right? Let's say you pick a beautiful landscape next to a river, and you've got some trees there. Every time you pick a piece of your house and go back to that landscape, the system has to redraw that landscape
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
then color that landscape every single time.
Yeah.
And it takes 10 seconds in some in some instances.
It reminded me of World Class Leaderboard Golf. if you were playing World Class Leaderboard Golf on like a calculator or an abacus. I mean, it was level of speed.
It's brutal.
Yeah.
So let's talk now about the interior design. Somehow they managed to make bad worse. In interior design, the first thing you do is you have to set through the drawing and coloring of this.
This is where you see the house. It looks awesome.
Yeah, this dollhouse type thing, right?
Yeah.
And it has, I don't know, six, 7 rooms, and you pick what room you're going to do interior design on. And I thought this was really clever at first. I thought, okay, I'm going to pick something that has a nice window to the side, and I'm going to build my little living room here. You pick that room, and then the room that you picked looks nothing like what you what the selection screen had. There are no windows. There are nothing. It is basically just an isometric corner. So then it's the same paper doll thing as the other one. You pick a piece of furniture, and you can kind of scale its size between 3 choices. Sometimes, not everything is scalable. And you put it in your room. The other thing to note about when you do this is everything comes in black and white. And you have to then go back to the other screen, choose a color, come back to that screen, and fill it in, right? Yeah. If you're using like the paint bucket, you can fill in all of it at once. If you misclick and click the black drawing part of it, it will paint it, and the detail of your item is gone.
Yeah.
And did you ever find an undo in this, Aaron?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. It's brutal.
I'm not gonna lie to you. I didn't spend more than 20 minutes on your cartridge, Brent.
Oh,
because it was not fun to play given the parameters of how I played it.
My goal was I'm gonna build something awesome, and I'm going to present it to the stream. It didn't happen, people.
I knew it wouldn't.
It didn't happen.
Because you can't build something awesome.
I tried so hard to make something work on this, and I would misclick, or I would have the item I wanted. It was off perspective by a little bit, and my brain could not handle just moving on.
Yeah.
Little errors are so glaring in this that you want to jump off a bridge. The third thing, and that is all of interior design, you get a list of items, and it's a pretty extensive list. It's got, television sets and grandfather clocks and bathroom fixtures and everything like that. It's a decent little selection of things, and then you put them in the room and you color them, and you're done.
Yeah.
The next thing that is selectable is the textile design. I'm going to skip fashion. We're saving fashion for last.
Oh, okay.
Textile design. This is, I believe, supposed to be where you're designing like a floor tile or something like that. Or some kind of repeating design.
Patterns.
Yes. I was never able to do much of anything with this.
Yeah.
This is probably the most competent of the set. Only because the limited size and limited options makes it so you're more focused, and it doesn't have to redraw a bunch of background crap every time.
That's a big killer in this title. It's just even when you're waiting for menus everything takes forever. It's so slow. This was probably a little ambitious for the hardware in the way they were using it, Brent. And by a little, I mean they were out of their minds.
So the texture things, it gives you a few sample textures that you can kind of piece together, and then of course you can erase any of this stuff and draw and do all that stuff. So the texture design, probably the best of the bunch, but still really bad. And then we've got fashion designer, and all of this has been paper doll stuff. Do you know what paper doll means, Aaron?
Yeah, man, I know exactly what you're talking about. Where you take just have different little pieces you got to stick on them. Yeah.
Yeah, for those that don't know, it's you have a canvas of something, and then preset designs that you just put over top, and you can overlay 2 or more of them to make kind of new designs. Fashion designer, you start out by picking a near naked boy or girl, and then you have to dress them in true paper doll fashion.
I told Teresa, she was walking by the hall, and I said a real look on my face. She goes, "What?" I was like, this thing just drew a little girl in her underwear.
Yeah.
But trust me, you don't have to worry. There's no perversion here because these were as cartoony as they get. But it still was an odd. It was like bizarre.
It was still odd, yes. So you pick your subject, and then it draws their bedroom. Every time you come back to the screen, it has to draw the bedroom, and it takes ages. And there's a decent selection of different types of clothing, right?
Well,
and it is, and all the clothing, just like everything else, comes in black and white, and then you can color it however you want. And you can take the drawing tools and edit the clothing. So if you give your guy jeans, but you really want him to have jean shorts, you can actually erase the bottom of the jeans and kind of make it look like jean shorts. And it actually works off of layers, because when you erase, you don't erase the kid underneath, you're actually just erasing his clothing. So that's pretty advanced for something like this. However, it's so darn slow that it is prohibitive. And that's what's really, really disappointing in this. Is this could be a functional piece of software if everything that you did didn't take ages. And it's also incredibly frustrating that one error, one mistake, and everything you've worked on is just ruined. Is this educational? Aaron, yes, no? I don't think so.
Well, I felt like it taught me a lesson. Let's just put it that way.
I feel like it took me to the woodshed.
I feel like it took me to school, as the Nate would say. This title is, first of all, the name of the title is odd. Because as for a kid's, I mean, what parents back in that days? I mean, that's CAD was not super well known to, like, it still isn't to everyone. If you said, "Hey, man, what are you into CAD?" just to some guy on the street, they may not know what you mean. It's not like you're saying, like, "Hey, do you like Space Invaders?" or something, or like, "Do you like drawing?" something. So the name is odd. I should mention that when I was looking for I told Brent about this earlier. I tried to find a box for this thing. As far as I could tell, there was no box. I think it came in like this bizarre clear package with a mouse, I think.
Yes.
But there's no.
Yes, it did come with.
We don't know. We don't know.
This is how you purchase your
mouse.
Mouse.
I don't know for sure if that's how it was packaged, but I couldn't find a box. So, but let's assume there was no box. That's strange the way they would package it, and the fact that they would try to pull this off. Listen, if you had a system that was doubly as quick as this one, you might have something here. If you had something with a little bit resolution where you could actually have the menus on the same screen as the canvas, you might have something here. But this is a little bit too ambitious for what you had to work with. Also, I can't imagine a kid sitting down and having the patience to play with this in its current state. They would. There's no way that they would sit through this. They would get too bored. Even back in and listen, I was a patient kid back in the 80s. But I wasn't this patient. I mean, and by 88 or 89, listen, stuff was quicker than this. I mean, that's what V-TECH does. They take sort of old hardware and they use it to, for something. But I think they were just, this title here is probably, of all the titles, you're right, this was the most ambitious. You did pick that one right, but it was overly ambitious.
And in the end, I don't think, while most of the system was geared to your, 3 to 9-year-old. This was definitely geared to a older person. I'm talking probably 13 to 16 type range.
This was sort of like geared to the girls, I think, too.
I don't agree with that. I think it was. I think this was pretty gender neutral.
Well, I don't know. You get to do the fashion stuff, the textile stuff, decorate a house. I mean, I'm just saying, of all the titles we've ever covered on this show, this one would appeal to the little girls as at least as much as the little boys, if not more.
Okay, I'll agree with that.
Yeah. Kind of neat. So there you go. We finally covered one for the ladies.
We're sorry it sucked.
I'm assuming you didn't find any pricing or anything on this thing.
I looked.
Yeah.
This has been sold within the last decade.
Yeah.
However,
Wow.
the site that it was sold on did not allow me to see the price without signing up for their service.
I should mention, I looked up mine. You could buy this. This is sold for $25 in the box. So you could find it. And if anyone wants to run out and buy a Socrates, at least in the States. Now, I'll tell you, I overpaid for this thing, Brent.
Yes, you did.
Well, listen, the place, I love this gaming store in Milton, and they were closing down. And the owner of the store has been very ill, all right? And that's one of the reasons they were closing down. And I walked in and saw the Socrates sitting in a glass case. I'm like, holy smokes. And I had to say, the ARG spirit came over me. I'm like, that's a Socrates. And so I was like, and my thought was, I must have this at any price. You know, I don't know, my brain was like, these are incredibly rare. I've got to have one immediately. And so he wanted $100. And I paid it. I paid $100 for this thing, which was dumb. That was dumb. I'll be honest with you. As soon as I got in the car, I'm like, why didn't I look this up? Now, I will say they're going on eBay between, say, $55, $60 all up into the $100 range. But usually for that price, you're getting the box and stuff, which I didn't get. So,
correct.
Yeah, you know, your mileage may vary. Now, before we move off the Socrates, we did get one bit of feedback, and it's from our boy, The Boat. That he actually put a little story in here. I'm going to read this thing because it shows you the love that the Boat has for this machine. So Boat writes, I can claim very little credit for the runaway success of ARG Presents podcast, except for the naming of it and convincing Aaron not to make a wheel and buying the wheel and carrying it through the rough early days before the Brent made the changes that caused the podcast to actually become successful. There's a lot in that paragraph, Brent. But one thing I can claim credit for is the V-TECH Socrates, which I suggested to be put on the wheel during the inaugural Thanks for Giving Marathon. The games reviewed on this week's show are nothing to write home about, but I wanted to talk about my overall thoughts on the system. I used to spend weeks at a time during the summer staying with my friend Logan in Culloden. He had a Nintendo, an IBM XT, and a Socrates. After we'd played the Nintendo nonstop for hours and exhausted the fun out of Wheel of Fortune and Family Feud on the IBM, it was time to turn our attention to the Socrates. Even as a child, I wondered about this machine. It's tiny, misshapen controllers, its useless keyboard. But there are several charming aspects to this obscure console. The first is the mascot, a friendly Johnny Five-esque robot who is present in all the games. He looks cool. He's a robot. Next is the music. The little ditties that play in each game are quite catchy, and the sound chip in this machine is really quite good. Finally, the graphics of the games are always bright and colorful, and it's clear that V-TECH hired competent pixel artists to draw them. The major drawback with this system, its unforgivable flaw, are the loading times. For a cart-based system, watching things be drawn on the screen slowly and slowly filled in with color is neat the first time, but agonizing from then on out. It's quite unfortunate because I had a good time with both experiences this week, aside from just waiting around to get things going. So there you go. Heartfelt endorsement of the Socrates for Boat and admitting its flaws. One thing I like to do, Brent, is admit your flaws. And you were wrong. All the pieces you've made on this wheel, they're wrong, horribly wrong, but we're going to spin this sucker anyway. Let's go. So, Brent, we added a couple interesting pieces this week. And by interesting, I mean terrifying. Let me grab the wheel here. So, for our Retro Rewind, we've added the Atari 7800. It's back in the mix, Brent. Now, This is the one that frightens me. The new piece we've added this week, this is another one for the Brent Dungeon of Despair. The Sabaico Extreme, spelled cool guy style, Brent. The Sabaico. You don't know anything about these, do you?
Nope.
You want to tell the people about these locked pieces?
Those are the fallen Amigos shows that, unfortunately, we have just ran out of time for. The 1200, the TRS-80, and the Sinclair. If they get spun, their pieces will not be removed from the wheel, and they will be alive to spin again.
And they'll be on here until this year's Thanksgiving Marathon, which will be in the day after Thanksgiving. All right, you ready to spin this thing? I'm going to give it a whirl, Brent. You ready? Here we go. What, you got a thought this week?
Nope.
That explains a lot. All right, not a great spin. I'm not going to lie to you. Here we go. I got a good feeling. And oh no, what do we get? Android games, phone games, Brent. Phone games. There it is. Brent, you want to tell the people the rules for this one?
We're phoning this one in.
Oh,
folks.
God. So what's the scoop on this one, Brent? This was your baby.
No, this was your pick,
This
actually.
was mine?
Yes.
Okay. What are my rules?
It has to be a free piece of software from the Google Play Store. I think that's fair, right?
Yeah. Oh, it has to be from the Google. So no iPhone games is what you're saying.
Well, we don't have iPhones.
That's true.
So.
That's true. So, and now is there a date or time limit on these?
iPhone isn't Android. So yeah, pretty much all that was just a dumb comment by you.
Hey, that's what I'm here for. So any game from the Android store is what you're saying.
Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna.
And I will already tell you. Do you want to already know the game I'm picking?
No, that's not the way this show works. You don't even, by the way, you'll change your mind 10 times.
No, absolutely 100% I already know what I'm picking.
So we'd like to thank everyone for joining us live in the chat room. What do we got? Who's in the chat this week, Brent?
Let's give our lurkers a little bit of love here. Let's Dinu, thanks for coming out. Dr. Strawberry 81, that's a name. And then we got Hot Local Mom. Well, it's good to see moms are coming in.
I like it.
And Rubber Slayer, thanks for coming out.
Hot Local Mom, call me later. Send me a PM me. PM me, please.
And then some folks in chat. We've got Mitz, we got Picard, we got Pixels of Dawn coming in a little late, but yes, I am a Greek philosopher now.
The Greek's really slow.
Roushi makes an appearance. Frodo. My lovely, lovely wife was in chat this morning. Our own Toxic Adventure made an appearance. So pretty good crew.
Yep, we had all of our usual suspects are here right out of the gate. We get Picard and Dunk, the whole 9 yards. We love it. Any parting thoughts before we take this thing to the house, Brent?
It's unfortunate that one major flaw can kill the Socrates, but it absolutely killed it.
Yeah, I still had a lot of fun with the old sock. I'm not gonna lie to you. I was abused, and now I justified my $100 purchase. That's the way I look at it. It's justified. Until we see you next week for Android phone games. Have a safe and happy week, and we leave you with one parting word: Socrates.
Socrates! Thanks for joining us today. We really hope you enjoyed the episode. We'd like to say hello to all of our YouTube subscribers, as well as all of our Twitch followers. We want to say a special thank you to Duncan Stiles, who does all of our awesome Vectric graphics, and to BarkBit for writing our incredible closing theme. Would you like to help keep ARG spinning for as little as $1 a month? You can do so at anchor.fm/ARG-presents. Help keep us spinning. Just like these fine folks. John Deckman, Anthony Jarvis, Hermsky, Gary Heather, Graham W. Letke, Frodo NL, Chris Foles, John Schaller, Mitsuyama, Retro Algae, and Terry Howard. Don't want to explain another credit card bill? That's okay too. You can help us by leaving us a positive review on Apple iTunes and Spotify. Have an idea you'd like to add to the wheel? You can contact us at argpresents@mail.com. ARG films live on Twitch every Sunday, 9 a.m. EDT. Hope to see you there. Congrats.